Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Skate. Today we're gonna do it a little bit differently than normally because we're both in front of the camera.
Yay!
We're gonna talk about the Quattro frames and we wanna go really in depth, explain everything about them.
Yep.
From the materials to the design to how it functions, everything.
Yep. Because we still have a bit of the feeling that some people don't quite get it, right?
Yeah.
So we're here to explain it and then later on show it and tell us, tell the people, the viewer how it is to skate on a Quattro and different setups and what setup is the right for the viewer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have basically two main models and one has three wheel options.
Exactly.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so it all started out with the Quattro S, which is the, let's say, more free skate based frame. And then after the success of how well this worked, we were still training on normal speed skate frames, and we said, okay, we need this in a speed skate setup. So after this, we developed the Quattro R, which is a bit different. We'll explain later as towards the wheel setup, but the mounting is exactly the same. So yeah, so we have Quattro S. These are the three frames you see in the front, and then we have the Quattro R, which has more of a different function than these in the front. But they're similar with the mounting.
And so quickly, what does the S and the R stand for?
I think the R stands for race.
Yes.
And is the other one street or?
I think we started out with speed, but maybe street is more.
Should do it street. From now on, it's street because it's this is the all-rounder. You know, you can choose between those three frames, but it is a very versatile frame, as you know. So depending on what setup you have in the Quattro S, they all function similar, with a bit of an exception of the 90-100. But then this one is made only for speed skating. And interesting, if you're really into hardcore downhilling, might be one for you, but it's very fast, so
be careful.
Be careful.
Okay, so can you quickly tell us the wheel configurations of the Quattro S?
So we have Quattro S. We have, let's see, this is the small one. So it starts with 80 millimeter, the first two wheels, and then the back wheels are 84. We'll dig into this a bit later on. So 80, 84. Then we have the 84 and the 90 millimeter.
That was the original.
That's the original, which, so if you have the first one, we did shave off some of the material, so they are lighter now than the first ones. Mm-hmm. Dimension-wise, it's almost exactly the same. And then we have the 90 and then 100. So that's a Quattro S. And then quick on the Quattro R, 110, 110, and 2 times 100 to sit very low, actually.
Yeah.
And I have a short wheelbase still. Yeah.
And we already made a video about this frame, so if you're interested, check that one out.
Yeah.
It's a Let's Skate episode. I'll link it in the description.
Amazing frame.
Yeah. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about how they are produced? What type of materials?
The tech.
The tech talk, exactly.
All right. So maybe not a lot of viewers know, but these frames, because they have these wings on the outer where they are mounted, we started out with like a full block of aluminium, which is in this case partly already CNC machined. So they are fully CNC machined in the Netherlands. They come out of a block of 7,075 aluminium made in Switzerland. As far as I'm aware, we are the only one that is, the only company that is that crazy to put that much money into the raw block, to be honest. It is the hardest material that is available in aluminium for CNC machining. Yeah, and it just makes it such a rigid frame. It is like literally indestructible, let's say. Yeah, it's so solid. But that is also the way it performs. So all the power you put down in the frame is so powerful. You know the feeling of having a Quattro frame. So yeah, this is the production method. So it's, as you can see, it's pretty cool. So it comes out of like, it looks like this, and then it goes through all the stages to being, in the end, an actual frame. So the difference between this is that most frames come out of an extrusion. So that's aluminium being pulled or pressed through a shape, and then you have an extrusion. That's a cheaper way to manufacture. I'm not saying that's not a good way. This is the ultimate as towards precision. So
the extrusion is also still machined afterwards, right?
An extrusion is still machined. Only precision on this is just, it's the ultimate. If you see these videos online, how they manufacture something, when it looks very cool, it comes out of a solid block. So the same is actually for our mounting plates. These are also CNC machined out of the 7075 aluminium, and the same goes for our bolts, which are slightly different than the normal bolts in any other frame. We'll get into that a bit later. Yeah, that's basically how they're made. Yeah, and it's mostly because of high tolerances and materials and feel that we want to gain with skating. So, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me about the Quattro Mount itself? What is the idea with the mount?
Yeah. So I remember when we first started Adapt, we went into going with free skates. I've always been interested in free skating. I have been free skating for as long, kind of similar to my aggressive skating. Also been into speed skating, also similar with all the other things I did on skates. And yeah, when we started out with the aggressive frame, we developed a 6 mount. And that was because there was like sort of in most of aggressive skates, there was quite a lot of play within the sole plate. So it's a boot, and then you have one bolt, well, 2 bolts to mount your frame. And a lot of, like, if you would look at it slow-mo, you would see the frame actually flexing on these 2 points. So when we went into developing the GTO, we would use 2 bolts, 4 per boot, to mount the frame to make sure that it was super rigid, right? Only like I was still not happy because of the mounting point is very slim, is small, and then all that pressure from shocks and everything goes in through the middle of the boot, which is basically not the strongest part of any boot, because of everything with an arch is very strong, but then something with a flat bottom can like compress. So that got me thinking, and yeah, before any other brand did something with a different mounting, we were already working on this quite early, I would say, after the GTO.
Yeah, the one with the double screw was actually the Hyperskate 0.
That was the first, yeah.
And then when we released the GTO,
that was the first one.
We had the mounting ready, but not the frame.
But not the frame, yeah, because it took us a while to have this made as well. Yeah, so we came up with a mounting, which is the Quattro Mount, not to be confused with the Quattro frame. So a Quattro Mount has 4 options. It's inside of every GTO, every Hyperskate, every Superleggera type of skate. So it goes inside the boot with an aluminium plate, and it actually uses, so it has 195, we also explained this in other videos, but again we have 195 millimeter, which is for most speed skate frames. We have the 165 here, which is for most free skate frames, and with a UFS adapter in the back, you can make it UFS. But then we have the outer bolts, which are the strongest bolts actually on the outside, again, because it's not mounted in the middle, it's mounted at the point where it has most force.
Yeah, so you have more surface.
You have more surface, but you also have the strongest point of when working with carbon fiber. These are the strongest points because that's where the shape it goes like this. So at that point, that's where the mountings are for the Quattro frame. So it's 4 bolts that go in the boot on the outside, which makes for so many advantages. And we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, that's the design of the Quattro, and that's how it all came about, with me not being happy with what was available, feeling flex. Even if it's a carbon boot, I would still feel flex. And I used to work
not in the boot, but in the
not
frame,
in the boot,
right?
yeah, but in the frame. And I used to work for a speed skate company, and they would also CNC machine out all these holes. For me, there was like just a loss of power transfer, because you could feel then the compartments which hold every wheel. You could feel that flexing again. So I was like, no. So that's why one of the reasons we were one of the first with the Hyperframe to keep the walls intact. So not to cut out all those holes. And now these days, everybody kind of picked up on it. If you would date back, you would see that nobody did that before, actually. So yeah, that's to keep the walls intact, to give again more power to the wheels, basically. So yeah, that's in short, that's a Quattro mounting. So yeah.
All the Quattro S frames have the high-low setup.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the high-low setup is, and also why we chose the high-low versus standard versus rocker versus 3-wheel?
Yeah, sure. So what is a high-low? Came from the 90s when hockey skaters would want to train on off-season, and they needed something that was giving a lot of power transfer back. Because of a hockey skate, you can see that they're very fast with their feet, and they need the power immediately. When all wheels are exactly the same diameter, it is a longer frame, and it also wants to not shift direction as fast. So I'll just explain it in short. So you have, let's say, the 8490 Quattro. When we put this on the ground, all wheels touch the floor, right? So you have to see it like this. The back is raised in this frame, right? As with most free skates. So we have more space to go up. So what we did is we used 90 millimeter in this case to fill up this void a bit more. And then in the front, you steer with this part of the boot. So not with your toes. Toe is for pushing, but steering is all comes from here, right? So in this case, we need the smallest wheels to be in the front, because you're pushing off with this wheel, but also you're steering with this wheel. So here we have the smaller wheels. So it comes from, back in the day, from hockey. Why did we choose this setup for these frames? Because it is unique because of the mounting. So because of the wings on the outside, but it is also unique only on the Quattros that we have these the high-low setup.
Yeah.
And it just comes from having, I wanted to create a feeling that where it's a very sturdy frame, very fast, but it doesn't feel like you're on rails. And that brings me to 3-wheel setup and a rocker setup. So all those frames, except the 3-wheel frame, have a background. So a rocker frame comes from slalom skating. It's just that simple. So what are the advantages of a rocker frame for slalom? it is very fast that you're on the toes. So you can make that movement where you want to be on the front wheel or the back wheel, right?
So it's very nimble.
It is very nimble. It is also slower because if you want to go fast, you don't want, exactly. So that's a slalom frame, mostly has a rocker, right? Now with the trends, and we can call it like this, everybody is more into, oh, I want a rocker, I want this, I want this. For me, as a designer and skater, I don't feel that way. And to each his own, but for me, it's more the technical side and the feeling that I get on the frame. So that's very important for me.
And it's also like a different purpose, right? Because at least for us, our goal is not staying on a square and just doing like slalom tricks or whatever.
Yeah. So if
we want to go skate through the city and
that, so
right?
if you would opt for a rocker, then it's more towards being on a parking lot, trying some moves, more like sort of trick wise, right? We prefer to go into the city, urban skating, do everything basically. That doesn't mean you cannot use this as a very good frame for slalom, which we will demonstrate maybe later on. But it is just a different idea. So this frame is faster because all wheels touch the floor, right? It steers very unique because of it has 4 wheels, and this brings me maybe to a 3-wheel setup. So a 3-wheel setup is, I'm just gonna say it, it's born because of marketing.
Because of money.
Because of money issues, right? So skating was a bit in a downer, and in the bike industry, every 2 years, every year, they change up stuff on bikes. So people keep buying bikes because they're always like, oh, I need the 29 inches wheels, I need this, I need like a tapered bearing head, stuff like this, right? So basically, skating industry was like, oh, we have been doing this for all these years. Why not just change it? That doesn't mean that there weren't 3-wheel setups in the past, because there were, only they never came to like something.
Never really picked up.
No. So if you think about a company making a frame for only 3 wheels and you're selling that frame for the same amount of money, the company is making profit on 2 extra wheels, 4 bearings, 2 spacers, 2 axles. This times, I don't know, depends on the company, 10,000 is quite a lot of profit. Nothing wrong with making a profit, but that's kind of how that came about. There was not really somebody, or I'm not 100% sure, but in my opinion, there was nobody really asking for this. You can even see it in speed skating, where on the marathon, yes, because it's mostly straight, it does have advantages. Like if it's a perfect smooth surface, a 3-wheel setup can work. But you can see it in speed skating where it's not even allowed on the track. It's not allowed. You need to have the 4-wheel setup. And the advantage is, yes, you have 3 wheels, so it's smooth on a perfectly smooth surface. And the wrong thing about it that a lot of people think is that it's also smooth or better for city skating, which it isn't. And the reason is because of this 4th wheel. So if we have this wheelbase and we take out 1 wheel, there's going to be a bigger gap from each wheel, right? Even if you make it shorter, sure, it works, but still the gap, the bigger the wheel, the bigger the gap. And what we mean by gap is from this to this, from this to this, from this to this. So the bigger the gap, the more rocks can come in, the more you can go into the cracks of pavement or anything else. But also, and that's the most important thing, now if you change this wheel from under this point of the foot and you don't place it there, you put it here or you put it here, then the entire feel of how you steer with a skate goes away. And that's very important. Again, to each his own. You can have fun in every frame. Even a frame with one wheel would be fun, But it's not an all-rounder. It's not an all-rounder.
Yeah.
It has a purpose, and that's fine. So why not a rocker? Why not a three-wheel? For us personally, because we like power transfer, we like to be very responsive, nimble. All our movements should count immediately. And you have seen it when I skate with somebody on three wheels. Do I lose in a sprint?
No, you're faster. Maybe that's just your skills, though.
I don't know. But even on a downhill,
Yeah, true.
You've seen it before. So we're not here to talk about what is the best frame, because that doesn't matter, to be honest. It's more about the guide and the knowledge. Like, oh, okay, so this comes from this. Or a five-wheel comes from very old speed skate frames, actually.
And also for downhilling, right?
And downhilling, yeah. So they would pick those frames because they needed a lot more stability, right? So that's why this frame could be a contender to be a good downhill frame, because it has a lot of stability. The bigger the wheelbase is, the more stability you have. The more difficult it is to turn, right? So in short, they're all flat. That means they're all touching the bottom. So they're not rockered. However, they do steer faster than a normal setup. Let's say this frame is all 90s. So you would have a longer wheelbase, and the front wheels would be exactly the same as the back wheels, all 90. Because of the front wheels being smaller, it comes from, the logic is from racing, car racing. So in car racing, the front wheel mostly is 1 inch smaller than the back wheel. And that is because then the car is more on the weight, kind of the balance is different on the front, and then it can steer faster, and all the power is mostly in the back wheels, right? So that has more power band. It's the same with this frame. So you have to see it as you have the speed of a 90, but you have the skill and the movability of an 84, which makes for such a unique experience.
Yeah.
Even customers that had rocket frames in the past, they didn't know, let's say, and they would go to this. They're like, okay, this gives me the same edge almost as a rocker, but with more stability, more like more speed. Yeah.
And more control because of the mounting.
And more control because of the mounting.
Yep.
And then this frame, so this is the 90-100, I had a bit of more fun with the design in this one because of the wheelbase, it got a bit longer, right? If we would have centered, what we always do is we center our mounting. So we have 165 here. And then we center this in the middle, right?
So the back wheel sticks out basically the same
as the front wheel.
Yeah.
With this, we changed it slightly. The reason is because of the wheel is getting bigger. So it's harder to turn and be very nimble. When it was still a Quattro S, we wanted to have that nimble feeling, right? So we basically put the back wheels just a tiny bit more towards the back. And then that means it feels like a full-on 90 millimeters still, while you're skating a 100. This also makes it very good for downhilling because you can put all the weight on the back and it's very stable. Yeah. And it gives for a interesting feel, I would say.
Yeah,
but we'll test
that
later on.
I think we've covered most of the things I wanted to cover. Maybe quick fun notice when we talked about that's why I had to laugh, maybe you saw it, when we talked about the distance in between the wheels, about the three-wheel setup. Yeah. I did the marathon in 2019, I think, on a 3 times 1,
me as well.
110.
Because we had to test the frame for my old employer.
Old boss, and I fell over a traffic cone and I fell so hard. And I'm 100% convinced I wouldn't have fallen if I had a 4-wheel frame, because
Yeah.
There were people in front of me, so I didn't see the traffic cone until I fell over it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that wasn't fun.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. And the frame went well the entire.
Yeah, the rest was fine.
It was
but
fine,
it's
except
just
for the last part, which is
Yeah.
in the Berlin Marathon. You have the part where you go under
the Brandenburger Tor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are like small cobblestones.
Yeah.
And then you can feel the difference between the last year we were there on our Quattro R, and it's like smooth sailing.
Yeah.
But the other one, it's like literally like you're falling
because
apart.
I remember the year before you were already on a 3-wheel setup, and
Yeah.
I was still on the 4-wheel setup.
Yeah.
And you were complaining so much about
it's
that
like,
end part.
why
and
do
I
they
was-
do this like for the finish?
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then 1 year later I knew. So
Yeah.
yeah, interesting fun fact.
Yeah, just to end things a bit with the tech talk, we have one small thing, that is this bolt. So most bolts, they are just like tapered like this, and they end like in a, let's say, a triangle sort of shape.
Yeah.
Our bolts are CNC machined, that they are rounded here. So what does this do? It doesn't create a vacuum when you lock the bolt. So it's easier to undo, and it doesn't get like sucked in when you push it, and then it goes fully in there. So
Yeah.
that's a special feature that you don't see it, but when you compare it to another bolt, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And then we still have to say, like, I would say we're gonna show in the end what setup is best for who,
Yeah,
right? We're
Yeah.
just gonna test it now,
yeah,
and we'll figure it out, and we'll like give our opinion. This is our opinion. So
Yeah.
if you have a different opinion, like I said before, you can have fun on every frame, even if it's with one wheel.
Yeah.
Whatever. If it works for you, it works for you. This is just our opinion, and maybe
Yeah.
you like it. So
yeah. Okay, so let's skate.
let's go skate.
Okay, so the plan is that we're both gonna test all the frames and tell you what we experience and what we like, what we don't like. Yeah, basically that.
Yep.
We're both gonna start with our standard setup. For me, that's the 80-84, and you have the
8490.
yeah.
And that's my favorite setup, I would say. So yeah, we're gonna test these out, because of course we know how these skate, but it will give us a good solid, like, how do you say it?
Reference
to
Yeah.
switch our frames, and and then we'll give some feedback to you, and see how that goes.
Okay, so we had a little roll around on our frames that we normally skate. I'll first tell you about my experience. This is just, the frame is perfect for my skate size, in my opinion. I have quite a small size, 38. So I see a little bit of the front wheel, a little bit of the back wheel, but it's not too long. So that just gives me confidence in just doing, like, how do you call those? Crossovers, and
To gazelle out.
and I can do slalom moves, and it all just feels very natural. We also did the downhill, and you can probably see from the clip, Peter went a lot faster, and I also feel when I'm going pretty fast that it gets a bit unstable.
Yeah.
Because it is a short frame, but yeah, for like the regular skating, I really like this one.
So let's say it works with a size up to 41, 42. The bigger the size of your feet, the more nimble it will start to feel as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with the wheelbase. It's important if you, for example, it depends on your foot size as well, which frame to choose. But let's say you like to do slalom and you have 42, 43 or up, you can get away with this. So I'm interested in testing these, seeing how they feel, if they are as stable as this. So I was skating on the Quattro S 8490, which was the original Quattro frame. It is actually made for my feet size, in particularly like 42, because of the wheelbase is almost exactly as the heel position and the toe position. So this frame can also work on smaller sizes, but then it's more a frame that is for longer distances, right? It's not for the fast maneuvers. However, starting from size 41 up to 46, 47, this frame, because of the length and how we are then like shaped with feet, is a very maneuverable frame. Only for me, this would be probably more towards a slalom, where for you it's also a good free skate all around.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm interested in switching. You're going on the 8490 and I'm going on those tiny 80 millimeters and 84, and see how it goes. So
Tiny frames for your tiny dancer shoes.
Let's switch it up and we'll do some more skating in those.
Yes. So, how was the experience?
Interesting, quite fun. I have to say I did skate this frame before on the SPX that Rich brought with him. So then I was also surprised. For my length and what I normally do with my skating, it is too small. So the wheelbase is too small. However, I do feel that if you want to go into a slalom, this is ideal. The balance is still very nice. It works, but it is, for me as a personal taste, I would go one up, so the 84-90 millimeter, because I am more about the smooth lines and I'm not looking for that maneuverability. But I would advise this frame 100% to somebody that is not 100% sure what direction to go in. So if you still want to do some slalom for fun, you want to do some cone skating, but you also want to do maybe some street or I don't know, some park, and your feet size is up to 42, 43, it's ideal. It's a lot of fun. You could tell immediately I was like playing a bit more than with my regular frame, because it gives you immediately a more playful feel. However, I do prefer for my setup a solid frame, which also is very playful, but every move needs to be a bit more calculated. So yeah, that was my experience. How was my frame?
Yeah, I have skated them before already. It was actually the first time I ever skated on a Quattro frame. Was your set of frames. They feel surprisingly the same when it comes to nimbleness, I would say. So yeah, you can still basically do whatever you want.
Which is, it's crazy because you're actually skating on a speed-wise, it's a 90 millimeter frame.
Yeah. So and that I remember that the first time I skated them,
Yeah.
that blew my mind. I was so surprised by how a frame that, in my opinion, or for me, it feels quite long, but this one doesn't. So yeah, and I could really feel there's more roll to it. So that's, I would say, the main difference.
Yeah.
You feel that you keep your speed a bit better.
Yeah. On the downhill now, like it has to do with weight as well. I'm
But
just
now-
like a snowball going faster and faster. No, but
I could keep up this time.
you could keep up.
Yeah.
Actually, in the same thing where
Yeah.
with the reverse, I would just go away.
Yeah, you went so much
yeah.
faster. A really noticeable difference. The only thing I have, and that's why I have the other one, the shorter one for myself, is that with every like crossover and with every like little trick I do, I'm always like, I have to keep in the back of my mind, this is a longer frame.
Yeah.
And I know this comes from my aggressive skating background. Those frames are just shorter, so I'm just used to having a shorter frame. So that's why I prefer
And
the
you
other
have
one.
a smaller boot. So
I have a smaller boot
your
as well,
frame-
yeah.
Your wheels stick out more
Yeah,
towards from
exactly.
the toes.
But now we've been training for the marathon. That frame is even longer, so it's no issue at all. But I have to keep it in my mind, and that's the only downside, I would say, and that's why I prefer the other one. But yeah, overall, really good experience.
I'm gonna switch to the 190 millimeters in the front, 100s in the back. I have skated this before. It was super fun. Still very creative frame, but with a little twist to it. So I want to skate it again on my GTOs. And then I'm really interested. You haven't skated it?
I have
You had.
once, yeah.
That was my frame as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I'm interested in seeing how it makes you feel
On the downhill.
and also on the straight, how it feels, because this is more like getting a bit more distance covered, and yeah, but still very playful and fun. If you're into doing some big wheel witchcraft stuff, this can also be for you. So let's switch it up and let's try it out.
So, how was it?
That was insane. It's such a crazy frame. So now I was on the 90s 100, and it's that balance, you know, it's what I wanted to achieve. Like, I've always been intrigued to downhill or going super fast, and this frame is just like, it feels like you're skating a 90 millimeter. But to the point where you go down a hill, and this is the hill we did is for testing, you know, it's not like an actual, there'll be some downhills coming up later, especially now that I have this frame again. But when you push the balance towards the back, you can really feel that it starts to pick up speed, so much momentum. And it's the overall solidness, the durability of that frame. It's like, you know, when you don't feel the shoe, but like the boot, but the weight of the frame, the balance of the frame is just perfection. You know, it's I do still, my all round frame is the 8490, the one that you're still skating at this point.
Yeah.
That's the go-to frame when you don't have any special needs, let's say it like this. If you don't want to get into the nimbleness, and you have the normal size feet, let's say between a 39-ish up to the top end, you know, you're totally fine with this frame. It's the best all-rounder out of the three. So it goes fast, you can downhill with it, you can do slalom with it, you can just free skate with it. It's perfect. If you're looking to get more kicks out of like a downhill, this is insane because it also eliminates like a speed wobble. Speed wobble happens when the speed kind of goes over the stability of the length of the frame. Because of the shape that the wheels in the back, the 100s, are a bit more in the back, it makes it so solid, but also gives you a lot of trust in making the corners, which is insane. I really like it. Still, again, now I'm like, yeah, I want to I want to skate this frame, you know. So this has, in my eyes, it has like three purposes. It has the downhill, check, 100%. The long distance, but a bit of urban in between. Like, you like to do the bike pads, but you want to go into the shop as well with your skates on. This is perfect for it.
So not like a full-on speed skate setup. Yeah.
Or you want to do some fun big wheel skating on a I don't know, on a parking lot. You want to explore a bit with the wheels and everything. Then this is perfect as well. Yeah. So I would say those are the three like purposes for this frame. Yeah. Let's give these to you. Yeah. And you can roll around with it and see how that goes. I'm gonna go back to my normal setup, 8490, and we'll see how it goes on the downhill.
Yes.
I'll put in all my weight this time.
Well, that was interesting. So I was on the 90-100 now, and immediately when I stood up, I could feel like this is a different type of frame. Yeah. It feels so much more grounded and solid, really solid. At first I was like, can I still play with it? Yeah. But you can. Yeah. It takes
a bit of more of a push.
Yeah.
But then.
But when you try it, it all works. But you can feel it's a longer frame, and it wants to go fast and it wants to be stable. Yeah. But as soon as I tried like making sharp turns and stuff, it all went.
All works.
So it's really.
You have to commit more to the frame, but that's why it's more of a special division within the Quattro frames. But it certainly has its place. Yeah. On the downhill as well, you were like more stable. You can feel the difference. Yeah, right?
Super. Yeah, solid, like grounded is like the right word for it. Yeah, it felt really good, really fast, even though you still caught up with me. But hey, that's down to some other stuff. Yeah. I really liked it, and I think. For the city skating with the group in Maastricht, this is a really good setup because we always do like tours of 15-20 Ks, like outside of the city as well, a bit hills. Yeah. So I'm gonna skate this frame a bit more with that, I think.
Yeah, it's a fun frame. Yeah. I'm again went back to the 8490. It is the perfect all-rounder. Cannot say more about this. It just works. Again, when I skated, it's like falling in love all over again every time. It's weird. Like this frame is just like, for me, it's the sweet spot of a Quattro frame and of any frame I have ever tried in my whole career, which is 31 plus years strong.
Yeah, and it's really like the combination of everything, like the high-low setup, the Quattro Mount, the super rigid frame. Yeah. So it's an all-round really good package, and I really love them as well. So
All right.
I think that's a wrap for today. If you have any questions about the Quattro frames or about anything else, feel free to comment in the section below and we'll get back to you in another episode.
Yeah. And remember, it's all for fun. Our opinions are our opinions. We have strong opinions sometimes, but you know, that's how we develop these products, and it's all fun. So yeah, if you prefer other setups, that is up to you. It is the same with wheels. You prefer this wheel or this wheel. Everybody is free to do whatever. We just give our opinion with our expertise and our knowledge, and that's what we want to give to you, the viewer, basically. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and see you on the next Let's Skate.
Ciao!
Bye.